full advantage of. It's what is seen by investors and capital markets in general as a good preserver or a storer of value. If you're not sure, during geopolitical tensions, people buy gold. And we've talked about the ZiG, the that's backed by Zimbabwe. Now, that has obviously jolted the production of gold, and the target now exceeding 40 ton target for 2025 with a 1.9% increase from October to November. It's just an indication. And what's interesting, I'm sure we discussed this story last week, maybe we didn't. The Zimbabwe Miners Federation, which is mainly the small scale and artisanal miners, appealing to the government of Zimbabwe not to impose stringent royalty or taxation requirements on mining, because they were saying if you allow the small scale miners to make a contribution, you see us as a country able to exceed their production quota. And the more you produce, the more you are able to back the currency, and the more you bring the stability to that Zimbabwean currency. And then that's why you have seen inflation coming down over the past couple of months.
No, certainly, yes, that is a story we actually did discuss last week as well. So great that you're bringing that up too. We see Aliko Dangote not only, investing in countries outside of Nigeria, but also reinventing back into Nigeria, and this time focusing on the education sector.
Yeah, isn't it amazing that somebody will be committing $688 million and is not the largest investment he has made in his country by far? I mean, he just came off the $20 billion refinery, and he's in the agriculture space, he's in other sectors as well. But he's a key industrialist, but he understands that if you're going to industrialize Africa, you need to invest in education. And the one thing that Africa really has to do a lot of work on is education. So he is just proving that he's one man who's looking at the radar, the dashboard of Africa, and asking questions: where are the gaps and what can I do to invest? Now, this is the philanthropic side of Aliko Dangote. He's in the Times top 100 philanthropists in the world, and he's targeting about 45,000 students here to make sure that the dropout rate goes down so that more people can stay in school, but also to make the Nigerian education system competitive. Interestingly, I just had a study from Keystone Education Group last week talking about how Nigeria and Ghana are among the West African countries where suddenly international students are taking interest in going to do higher education from other parts of the world. And I'm not just talking from other African countries. We're talking countries like Singapore, the US, and so on. So it's a realization that it's an investment that needs to be made. But just Dangote amazes me all the time, because he goes where there are real problems and he puts his money into finding a solution.
Oh, that he certainly does, Victor Khomoswana. And you put your money in really giving us all the best and all the top business stories for the week. Thank you once again, and have yourself a fabulous weekend ahead.
It's been a pleasure. You too, Thami.
Always is. That's Victor Khomoswana, author of Africa is Open for Business and Africa Bounces Back. He's also the Executive Director for Marketing and Communication at the University of Limpopo.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
Let's focus now on Sudan, where farmers in the Kassala state in the eastern part of the country have begun harvesting sorghum in what the United Nations World Food Programme calls a major breakthrough for local food production. Supported by the World Bank-funded Tabat project, 16,000 farmers across 3 states have revived nearly 44,000 feddans of land with seeds, fertilizers and training, offering a lifeline to communities who are facing acute food insecurity. Now, with both the summer sorghum harvest currently underway and the winter wheat season quickly advancing, this marks a very critical step towards restoring stability and rebuilding the local markets. To help us unpack what this means for Sudan's food systems, as well as for families on the ground, we joined this afternoon by World Food Programme's Deputy Country Director for Operations in Sudan, Pablo Yuster. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business. Perhaps let's start off with the basics. From your perspective on the ground in Sudan, how significant is this sorghum harvest for communities that have been struggling through conflict as well as food insecurity?
Good afternoon. Thank you for the question. I think for all of us, not only for those communities, is hope. No, is after months of conflict and disrupted planting seasons, we are seeing how Kassala, River Nile, Northern, thanks to this project, are recovering and getting back on their feet, and that is hope for. Not for all those locations. It's also hope for the whole of Sudan. Sudan is an amazing country. Is able to produce food to feed all its citizens, and that is just a part of what Sudan can bring to the world.
So the Tabata project has supported thousands of farmers with seeds, fertilizers, as well as giving them some technical training. What are the immediate benefits that you are seeing for smallholder farmers as well as their families as a direct result of this intervention?
I would say that the first result, or the biggest benefit, is giving a sign of hope, as I was saying, that they can live by their own means. We started the project with 25,000 smallholders that receive sorghum seeds, fertilizers, and technical assistance under a climate smart services approach. So it's not only doing what they usually did, but they're doing it better. And these farmers got improved seeds and fertilizers, and the impact started immediately. Let me tell you that in our previous project, we managed to raise the productivity per hectare almost to double. That gives you an idea how important is the support. It's not that only they are coming from a situation that they were somehow desperate, not able to come back to their means of life, but they are coming stronger. No, they are coming in a much better way. Yeah.
I mean, that's really good news for the farmers. And looking at the scale of this project and the early success from the effort that you've just described, do you anticipate perhaps seeing more projects of this nature spread across Sudan and maybe even to other countries on the African continent that are facing similar challenges?
100%. There are so many opportunities for Africa, in the sense of the capacity, the production capacity is really amazing. The WFP have seen that in so many countries, and every investment in African agriculture, it comes back 100 times in terms of benefit, not only economical benefits, speeding up, feeding up the economy, and making many other sectors grow. And I'm referring to health, to education. Mm-hmm. So it's the base for all the rural development. So for us, it should be considered an example. And another important element I would like to remark, and this is part of what WFP does, the logistics. There is a 25% average of post-harvest losses in the African agricultural production. Just when WFP can come in and provide technical advice to those countries, we managed to bring an additional 25% of production, which is food that it never goes wasted. So I think that is a huge potential. It's of course just the starting point, because the private sector will do the rest, because believe me, in Africa, agribusiness is business, 100%.
All right, we'll leave it at that for this afternoon. And a huge congratulations on the efforts being put on the ground. Certainly the type of project that one would want to see being replicated in other parts of the continent, especially those that have experienced, certain levels of conflict, and ensuring food stability, even in the midst of that environment. Mr. Pablo Yusta, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, sir.
Thanks to you. Thanks a million.
Thank you. He is the World Food Programme's Deputy Country Director for Operations in Sudan. He takes us to exactly 20 minutes after 4.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
We bring you to South Africa, where the country has launched a nationwide foot and mouth disease vaccination drive. And this is really to protect the national cattle herd, to safeguard the red meat industry, and also to regain access to international markets. The country's Department of Agriculture has placed an order for 2 million vaccine doses with the Botswana Vaccine Institute, and these are expected to start arriving in the country by the end of December. For more on this, we joined on the line by the Deputy Director General for Agricultural Production, Biosecurity and Natural Resources Management, Dipepeneneng Serache. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having us, and good afternoon to you and to your listeners.
So could you start off by briefing us on the foot and mouth disease vaccination campaign that's currently being rolled out by the government?
Yeah, let's correct a few things. We wouldn't be able to get the orders end of December. It's rather end of January. We've placed orders, but as you know, that will take time. But okay, what are we trying to do here? We have been trying to manage the outbreak of foot and mouth disease by different other means, which include declaring what we call disease management area, which is when you cordon off an area that's infected. We've been vaccinating in what areas that we call protection zones. These are the areas that are known to have to easily have outbreaks. Areas around KZN, Kluklua Mfolozi Game Park, areas around Palaborwa, in the areas around Kruger National Park. All these measures don't seem to work. You still have sporadic outbreaks here and there, and we seem to be running after the disease instead of being ahead of it. Now, Minister Steenhuisen has then taken a decision after consultation with a lot of scientists and specialists in the field to work out what else can we do differently, because whatever we've been doing today does not work. So the directive, the decision that we have arrived at, ministers arrived at, is to ensure that we vaccinate the entire national herd. But in doing that, we are going to lose the status that we've always tried to maintain with the World Organization of Animal Health, which is freedom, that is foot and mouth disease freedom without vaccination. We're going to go into first week, we are in a contaminated state, in a infected state, which is what we are in now. We're going to move out of this stage through vaccination, and then the next stage we are trying to attain is FMD freedom with vaccination. We're looking at vaccinating around 14 million cattle, and after which we will then move to the next stages. And the intended goal is still FMD free without vaccination, but you have to start with contaminated, and then freedom with vaccination, and later on freedom without vaccination.
That's very interesting, and I'm wondering how this works, because once an animal has been vaccinated, how long is this vaccination active within their system? I'm trying to figure out what the cycle is going to be like and how long the cycling is going to be, from freedom without vaccination through the contamination stage to FMD with vaccination, and then back again to freedom without vaccination.
Yes. So let me simplify it like this. Okay, maybe let's start with a question. The vaccine is supposed to vaccine itself does not necessarily prevent the disease, but it lowers the possibility of disease being spread from one animal to the other, or through what vectors. Vector could be human being handling animals, it could be the vehicle and all of that. So vaccination is a means of trying to lessen the potential and the possibility of the disease spreading. Now, what we're trying to do here is to ensure that animals that are not necessarily infected once they are vaccinated, you reduce the chances of them ever getting vaccinated. What is the duration, the potency, the duration? It ranges really, as you know, this is the virus. But the numbers we have, we're looking at some depending on which vaccine we're going to use. If we use the vaccine that we have currently in South Africa, which unfortunately, owing to funding, we are not able to produce locally, but we will be producing. But I'll come to that later. If we were to use our vaccine, we will have the animals, the vaccine is being effective for a period of 12 months, if not more.
And what is the target number of vaccinations that the department wants to achieve by, I don't know if February 2026 is too close, and maybe let's give it a year from when you actually receive the vaccination. So let's say between January 2026 and January 2027.
Until December.
Right.
Yeah. By that time, we aim to have vaccinated the entire national head.
So you've given yourself a good year.
We're looking at, but to contain this, we'll have to vaccinate KZN, the entire head, KZN. We'll have to vaccinate the entire head, the Limpopo and Mpumalanga, and moved inwards into the country. You then go to Gauteng. You then move towards parts of Northwest. Northwest gives us a challenge. We worried because Northwest shouldn't actually, because if you look at its geographic proximity from the other provinces that are known to have the easier prevalence. Northwest, we have to work around it and figure out what is happening there because it's far from them. But anyway, so we'll have Northwest, Free State, Gauteng. Once those, by around June next year, we aim to have covered the tricky provinces. And later on, we hope not to even have to vaccinate Northern Cape because Northern Cape hasn't had any case. Northern Cape and Western Cape, we hope not to have them vaccinated by that time. But by June, we can later on. But also, this is going to be risk-based. But why do you use the term the entire national head? It is because the current law, the current regulations that governs vaccination require us to differently brand animals that have been vaccinated. So we brand them with an F for Freddy, F mark, to indicate that this animal has been vaccinated, either because it had been infected or because it has been preventatively vaccinated. Preventatively would be those that are in the protection zone around Kruger National Park. So that is the current regime.
And what numbers are we talking about here, Mr. Serrage?
The numbers, we look at the entire national head is estimated at 14 million.
14 million.
14 million. But obviously, there's animals that are being imported from Botswana and Namibia. We're not counting those. But also, to talk about the size of animal head is tricky because we must also factor in the slaughter rate, the daily slaughter rate. So as animals are getting born, others are getting slaughtered, others are getting imported into the country, but a safe figure is around 14 million.
And what impact has the FMD outbreak had on farmers and the broader meat industry? And in turn, what impact has this had then on food prices?
Yes, that's a good question. So the reason Minister decided to change the approach is because with the current laws, the current regulations are that once a farm is infected with foot and mouth disease, we quarantine that farm for 12 months. During that time, you may not do business, livestock business. So that automatically coming to your question, there has a serious effect on the business of livestock business of that farmer. The situation gets worse if it's in a communal space. In other words, communal space is where farmers, different households have their cattle mixing during the day, grazing together, getting separated in the evening. Now, those ones, if one group is infected, we take the entire group as one, and then we quarantine that for the 12 months. You see, that automatically means the farmers cannot farm. It means the animals cannot go to auctions, and it means animals cannot be traded. It means automatically supply and demand. It means the price, there will be less meat, beef, and then it means the prices will go high. So obviously the current system leads to meat prices going high.
Mr. Saraga, we'll have to leave it at that for today, but thank you for that update. We'll see what January brings in store as far as the arrival of these vaccines and your national vaccination program, as you put it, for the national herd, around 14 million, give or take. We thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you so much. Wish us luck. Thank you. Bye.
Good luck. Have a good one. That's South Africa's Department of Agriculture's Deputy Director General for Agricultural Production, Biosecurity and Natural Resources Management, Dipepeneneng Serage. He takes us to exactly 4:31 Central African time. Let's head over now to the markets desk, where Bunke Hedbush is standing by with your latest market indicators.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Thami. Good afternoon. And our final look at the indicators this afternoon. $1 is trading at 16 Rand 90 in South Africa. In Botswana, it's trading at 13 Pula 32. Namibia is 16 Namibian dollars 90. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 23 kwacha. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 12. In Ethiopia, at 155 birr 23. Uganda, 3,532 shilling, and in Tanzania it's at 2,450 shilling. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,449 naira this afternoon. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 47 Egyptian pound 51. Tunisia, it's trading at 2 dinar 91. Algeria, 129 dinar and 6. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham and an 8. In Angola, it's trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,221 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,325 per ounce, platinum at $1,772 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $61.18 a barrel. And that's the indicators. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please do send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Bunke Hedbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And for the business of sport this Friday, standing by from the sports desk is Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Thami. And we begin with football news in this business. Manchester United Chief Executive Omar Berrada says the latest financial results released yesterday show strong progress in the transformation of the club. The Red Devils reported a $17 million operating profit for the 3 months until the 30th of September, compared with a $9 million loss in the same period last year. United's total revenue for the 2026 fiscal first quarter dropped by 2% to $187 million due to the lack of European competition for the men's team, who are 6th in the Premier League under manager Ruben Amorim. The women's team, coached by Mark Skinner, are 3rd in the Women's Super League and are competing in the Women's Champions League. A prominent Kabwe businessman in Zambia and investor, Matthew Mohan, breaks down some of the reasons why Zambian football is on the decline. Mohan has challenged Zambians, saying they must start to recreate or create value for football. He says he believes that football can be the 4th contributor to value addition in Zambia.
Last week, the Pyramids arrived in Zambia to play a Champions League game with Power Dynamos, who were still en route through different countries to arrive in Zambia. Again, as businessmen, we were contacted. They were looking for 2 trucks to keep their food. Power Dynamos arrived through 2-3 connecting flights, connected through 10 miles to the Copper Belt, while the Pyramids flew directly into the Copper Belt, got the results and flew out. What made them get the results is they have systems in place.
Mohan, who has acquired shares of the Mines United Football Club, says business in football is important to run a successful football team that will challenge their counterparts in other African countries. Mohan has more about how much they put in for the team.
What efforts are we putting in place to create value? I'll talk about Mines United. I'm a private investor. I'm the chairman for Farmers Nest Group of Companies. We have 1,726 workers today. We acquired a huge stake in Mines United, about 80%, and shared the rest with the community of Makululu. Mines United, we want to create value for the team and value for football, value for the communities, and so forth. How do you create sustainability around that? For example, imagine we didn't have a group of company that is supporting this team. 28,000 kwacha for referees per game times 17 home games. That's 300 to almost 400,000. You win the league in Zambia, you get 300,000 kwacha.
On to cricket news, the International Cricket Council ICC has announced the opening of ticket sales for the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, pricing entry-level tickets at historic lows to drive accessibility for the pinnacle event. Sales will begin at 6:45 p.m. Indian Standard Time, with prices starting at just approximately $1.11 at some venues in India and approximately $3.26 in Sri Lanka. BCCI Honorary Secretary Devajit Shaika says with ticket starting at low $1.11, the excitement around the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2026 is multiplied manifold. Let's end with tennis news. All eyes are on the prizes Sydney Silversmiths deliver for Australian Open. That great attention to detail is a hallmark of a great tennis tournament, will come as no surprise to silversmith Paul Smith, who is responsible for crafting the trophy taken home from the Australian Open by the women's singles champion. The major trophies, the men and women's singles, men and women's doubles and mixed doubles, are all handmade from roughly 18 kg of silver and have a value of at least $534,000. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figure Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you to Bontle Headbush, bringing us the latest market indicators, and Figile Lingwati with the latest from the business of sport. They take us to exactly 38 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time as we turn our focus now to the British American Tobacco, that's BAT. They've announced that they'll be shutting down their operations in Mozambique, a decision that's expected to increase pressure on South African authorities to curb the flow of illegal cigarettes, which the company says have eroded its sales volumes by 40% over the past 5 years. Listed in both Johannesburg and London, BAT confirmed its departure from the Mozambican market, though it did not provide specific reasons for that withdrawal. What could this exit mean for Mozambique's tobacco value chain and for jobs within the sector? Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa has those details.
British American Tobacco, BAT Mozambique, once commanding more than 90% of the country's cigarette market, has confirmed it will withdraw from the Mozambican market. However, spokesperson Daniel Munden declined to disclose the timeline for the exit or the potential impact on jobs. What economic impact could BAT's exit have on Mozambique's tobacco value chain and employment levels? Dr. Wilker Diaz is the executive director of the Decide platform.
I think Mozambique right now living a worse scenario during these 2 weeks because I think last week received information of the Sweden embassy who leave the country, who leave the investments in our country. So it's one very worse scenario because Sweden, it's our very big partner, was I think one of the big five the partners in Mozambique, and right now we have the British American Tobacco. We also from Mozambique.
He says this is a blow to the country.
We think we're lost. We have people we lost. So many we have so many resources. When I said resources, it's work. It's our other companies who are giving some service to the British American tobacco, and this is not good because the state, for example, win a lot of the money with the revenue. So that is the one worse scenario we are living now, and the consequence will be so bad for our economy.
WSAT's departure might influence the scale of illicit cigarette trade between Mozambique and South Africa.
The British American tobacco departure will influence, we will see some bad influence in the market because that people who sell that illicit cigarette, for example, in the two countries, maybe we'll put that products in a very low cost to that people, to the customers can sell very cheaply. So that is the one very big problem we will see. And I think for these two countries right now, I think I have one very big challenge to run against that people who say that illicit cigarettes.
Meanwhile, Yusuf Abramji from Tax Justice South Africa had this to say.
The fact that BAT has sold its business in Mozambique highlights an inevitable consequence when illicit trade is allowed to flourish. A rampant illegal market results in unfair competition for legitimate businesses, the loss of honest jobs, and a significant reduction in revenue for the fiscus.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samos in Johannesburg.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
So we've been talking about this earlier on with my colleagues about the best cities on the African continent and who could have made it to the top for this year's Africa report. Well, I don't know if this is good news or bad news, whichever way you look at it. I know many people have consistently voted Cape Town as their most attractive city, which is the reason why it really has been topping the Africa reports for the past few years. But now there's a new king on the block. And that new king or queen is indeed Cairo. Cairo has overtaken Cape Town to become the most attractive city in Africa for the year 2025. And this is, of course, according to the Africa Report's second annual ranking of the continent's top 30 cities. The list, which is published on the 1st of December, combines results from a survey of 7,877 urban residents with data on the quality of life. They look at infrastructure, economic activity, and access to essential services. The 2025 results also show a widening difference between Francophone and Anglophone city ecosystems. For more on this, we joined on the line by Leanne de Passompierre, the business editor for the Africa Report. A very good afternoon to you. Good to have you with us. Welcome to Africa in Business. Are you with us, Leanne?
Thank you so much and very well. Thank you so much. Very happy to be on the show.
Well, this Africa report is really quite fascinating. But tell us about your main objectives behind compiling a list of Africa's most attractive cities.
Thank you very much, Thami. Well, I think that you will agree with me when we say there's not a lot of data on these to compile these lists. There's not a lot of this kind of data available. At the Africa Report and our sister station, Jeune Afrique, when we were trying to compare data from Cairo to Cape Town or Kigali to Abidjan, it is very difficult to compare these different cities because the data and the demographic, the size, the number of foreign direct investments to the countries are very different. So it was very important for us to try to find a methodology that we could use to basically highlight the attractiveness of these different cities. And that's how we came up with this list of the top 30, where Cairo has come in at 1, Kigali has come in at 2, and at 3 we have Nairobi.
So
and I would say not too very far behind that, we have Lagos at number 8.
are you serious? Okay, so I'm going to ask you now, Leanne, where is Cape Town? Because it doesn't seem to be anywhere in the top 4.
So I'm saying this as somebody who was born, bred, and buttered in Cape Town. Cape Town has come in at number 4. But it was at number 1 last year. And what is very interesting, Thami, to note in the methodology that we used this year, it was not just as we've done in previous years or in the previous year where we had a questionnaire for people who are within the GenAfrique, the Africa Report network, where we are questioning people who know the content. This time round, the methodology that we used, we teamed up with Sagasi Research based in Nairobi.
My sincere apologies, Madame de Bassompierre. My apologies, our line is really, really bad. So I'm going to take you back to our producer, Mabu, who's going to try and get you back on a better line, just so we can continue this really interesting conversation. She is Leanne de Bassompierre, the business editor for the Africa Report, highlighting the new leader, the new top city on the African continent, that being Cairo, followed by Kigali, Nairobi, Cape Town, and then Lagos also making its way through. Leanne, I believe we've got you back on the line. My apologies for that. But please do go ahead.
I apologize for that. Yes. And as I was saying, so number 1 attractive city on continent to GenAfrique and Africa Report readers last year. But this year, in order to make our findings a lot more, obviously these things are always quite subjective because you can't compare this. The data is not the same across the continent. The cities are not the same. So there will be a lot of subjectivity in the way that we compile this. But we looked at it, as you mentioned, from the point of view of the quality of life, infrastructure and housing, economic dynamism, and access to essential services. We also question people. And in terms of the people that we had the questionnaires with, that were from those cities or resident in those cities, and the 10% of respondents made up people who travel regularly to those cities. So some cities, the residents were more harsh on them. I know that Cape Town and Joburg residents, the responses that we got were people were more demanding of governance in their cities. Other cities, for example, where people were responding who either reside or are from Kigali, there were a lot more flattering of their cities that they live in. So the data that we used, that we compiled, was with this market research firm based in Nairobi. So it was based on the questionnaires, but also very importantly on the number of FDI, so foreign direct investments to those cities between 2020 and 2023. So it's a combination of those 2 data points.
So looking at Cairo, which has taken the top spot for this year, what are the key factors that drove its rise to number 1?
Definitely, I would say, is the number of projects that they have, so infrastructure projects that they had that started between 2020 and 2023. They have won hands down by that. And then, of course, the other factors in terms of attractiveness that has now made them more attractive, the new administrative center that they're designing, and also in terms of how many people responded in terms of the access to services in the city, the economic dynamism that they're experiencing because of this infrastructure boom that you're seeing in Cairo at the moment as well. So that is what brought Cairo up to number 1 for this year. And Kigali, of course, as I mentioned, their residents talking very favorably about the city and the infrastructure, how clean it is, them coming in number 2. And Cape Town dropping to number 4 because people are seeing that, there's not the same level of service that you get in some parts of the city that you would get in other parts of the city. Residents are not very happy. We've had a huge boom of tourism, which has been continuous, but specifically after COVID, the rise of digital nomads, now increasing property prices in the city center, totally pricing local people out of the market more than ever before. So those are the kind of issues that we've seen come in the survey that we've done in terms of livability across the continent.
And that being so important, I really want to wrap up with this before I let you go, Leanne. The widening gap that your report highlights between Francophone and Anglophone cities. Talk to us about that and what is actually behind this divergence.
Well, it depends on how they're marketing those cities, who is coming to those cities, the kind of investments that they're seeing. And so, as I mentioned earlier, a big component has been foreign direct investments. And so, for a country like Nigeria, for example, which is Anglophone West Africa, we have two cities, Abuja coming in at number 7, have the same number in direct investments as you'd see in, like I mentioned, in Cairo, for example. But Lagos coming in at number 8. We also, it's not that those were the only two cities in Nigeria that we had a look at, but we looked at Port Harcourt, we looked at Kano. And next year, for example, we would even consider looking at Ibadan. This year, there were one FDI away from being considered being evaluated for this list. So it's very interesting in terms of the dynamics and, as I said, all the metrics that we use to compile this list, because it's an imperfect list because, you're comparing very different cities, the dynamics of these different cities, the kind of foreign direct investments. And sometimes it's not just in terms of the value of those foreign direct investments, but the number of them as well. So you see some cities receiving very high volumes, but then it's only a couple of projects, whereas other cities like Nairobi, for example, they don't have very big projects, but they've got a number of smaller projects that also make up a very interesting dynamic.
Certainly very intriguing. Leanne Bassompierre, thank you so much for taking us through this really interesting outcome of the Africa Report. It's your second annual ranking of the continent's top 30 cities. Thank you. Have yourself a great weekend, Leanne.
You too. And you can find more information on theafricareport.com.
TheAfricaReport.com is where it's at. That's Leanne Bassompierre, the business editor for The Africa Report.
No worries. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Those top cities once again, Cairo, Kigali, Nairobi, Cape Town, Casablanca, Rabat, Johannesburg, Lagos, Pretoria, and Tangier in Morocco. Those are your top 10. It's exactly 4:52. Talking about Francophone countries, we get ready to move over to the French desk, and we've got Joëlle from Rue d'Afrique. Bonjour madame, comment ça va?
Bonjour à toi Thami, ça va, merci et toi?
Ah bien, merci.
Alors sur Rue d'Afrique, bonjour à tous les auditeurs. Sur Rue d'Afrique, il sera question aujourd'hui notamment du conflit à l'est de la RDC. Plus de 30 000 réfugiés congolais demandeurs d'asile enregistrés au Burundi. Et nous parlerons aussi de la crise post-électorale suite à la présidentielle du 12 octobre au Cameroun. Et au Kenya, la haute cour a suspendu l'accord sanitaire de 1,6 milliard de dollars conclu avec les États-Unis. Et en sport, ce sera avec Jolino Sungu dans la deuxième partie pour beaucoup de sujets, notamment en football. C'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci Thami.
Merci beaucoup Joëlle. That's Vue d'Afrique coming up in just a moment. At the top of the hour, restez connectés. Joëlle and the team join you as we hand over for the French desk. Let's close off this afternoon with a look at some changes that are happening as far as U.S. policy is concerned in relation to Zimbabwe. The United States have signed and signaled, rather, a shift in its engagement with Zimbabwe, moving away from a largely donor-dependent relationship towards one that emphasizes trade, investment, and perhaps a broader policy cooperation between the two countries. This shift has taken place against the backdrop of Washington's introduction of quote-unquote reciprocal tariffs, including an 18% tariff on Zimbabwean exports to the United States as part of a broader recalibration of U.S. trade policy towards several countries. For more on this, we joined on the line by economist Clinton Mosonza. A very good afternoon to you, Clinton. Perhaps let's start off with an understanding of what the U.S. policy shift means for Zimbabwe's immediate economic outlook. Welcome.
Thank you very much. So, the thing with economics, the effects, there are positives and there are negatives to take from this. So I think, the background is that for a long time now, Zimbabwe has been under sanctions. So Western, even the US, has not been able to work with the Zimbabwean government. But now that there is a policy shift towards, that is in favor of working with the Zimbabwean government, I think it's a good sign that maybe things might change for a better, because now the government, as African countries and as the Zimbabwe as a young country as it is, it also needs the support from the USA. So if the government is now is now showing that there might be chances of working together, I think it will have a positive effect on the Zimbabwean economy.
And could the shift attract more US foreign direct investment? And what impact might this have then on Zimbabwe's access to the American markets, particularly for minerals and agricultural exports?
So I think now, because the US is now seeing Zimbabwe as a partner, for there to be investors in Zimbabwe, there need to be a lot of structural changes in terms of, there being functional economic institutions as well as political institutions, but mainly economic institutions. Because if you are looking to attract investment, not donors, you need people who are in business, and they need functional economic institutions, a banking sector that is vibrant, a stable currency. So they look at a lot of economic indicators which will then attract investment. So as it stands right now, I don't see any significant investment that will come to Zimbabwe as it is right now, unless there are significant reforms which will then shift the doing business, or which will transform the doing business environment.
So if the US does ease restrictions, which sectors of Zimbabwe's economy are likely to benefit the most from this?
So looking at what the US has been saying, they are heavily skewed towards the health sector, because if you look at their new global health aid strategy, it's mainly about healthy, because they believe that if the citizenry is healthy, the economy is also good. So the health sector, I see that is the one which is mainly going to benefit. But also now, if the Zimbabwean government manages to put the necessary reforms in place and improve the doing business environment, I'm sure, capital is always looking for returns. Right. So if they make the environment conducive for business, I'm sure all sectors can actually benefit. Tourism stands to benefit. A lot of sectors actually are a bit of are behind in Zimbabwe because of the economic challenges that has been going on. So the opportunities are many in Zimbabwe. Mining opportunities are plenty.
All right, we'll leave it at that for this afternoon, Mr. Clinton. Thank you so much for your insight regarding a change in policy direction as far as the United States is concerned, choosing to interact with Zimbabwe more on a trade and investment platform as opposed to one that is aid-driven, which has been the case for really about 45 years or so. That was economist Clinton Musonza. Bring us to exactly 1 minute to 5 p.m. Central African time, and that's how we close off this African in Business edition for this Friday. From myself, Thami Ngubeni, and the entire team here of Africa in Business on Channel Africa, give yourself a splendid evening further, and restez connectés as Vue d'Afrique comes on.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za.
Vue d'Afrique. un magazine des actualités en français sur Channel Africa. Rendez-vous du lundi au vendredi avec Joël Mouteba sur Channel Africa de 15h à 16h, temps universel. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Bonjour à tous, excellentes conditions à l'écoute de Canal Afrique, la perspective africaine.